Daisy.
And I'm Terri.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 252. And as promised, last week, I think we mentioned this, we're going to do a bit of a sort of a catch-up episode, but a catch-up with other things that we've been listening to. I'm not even going to bother saying reading anymore because it's very rare that either of us read books. We mostly listen to them. But Terri, you've mentioned on this podcast, but also on TFM, you've mentioned a couple of books that you've been listening to recently that you found really interesting and useful. They're things that you've been sharing in the community, and I believe one of them is in an up and coming book club in TFM. So I thought maybe we could talk about those, and I've got a couple of things that I've been listening to that are, for one reason or another, not the kind of thing that I'd use on Monday Mindset. So we've got a few of those kind of things to talk about today. So Terri, why don't you kick off with one of the books that you've been listening to?
Great, Daisy. And of course, I'm always excited to talk about what I'm reading, listening to. And lately I have been reading a lot of fiction or listening to a lot of fiction because I can do other things while I'm doing that. So like while I'm jigsaw puzzling and stuff. But for the others part of my brain, I also do continue to listen to things that are also good for me as far as helping me to keep developing and to think about my work and things that relate to that.
It's tricky, isn't it, with the non-fiction stuff? You either have to do it intentionally, where you're somewhere you can take notes, or somewhere where you can bookmark it, or you have to just write the first listen off, as in, well, I'm just going to listen to this while I'm doing other things, and I can't take notes, and then I'm going to have to listen to it again. But it is a different listening experience, isn't it, to fiction?
I absolutely find that to be true. And for me, if I'm listening to nonfiction and something with good content that I want to know, what happens is while I'm puzzling or even driving, I come in and out of listening. And then I realize, oh my gosh, I don't even know what this point is she's making right now. And then I have to rewind because I hadn't been listening for a while because I did get a little bit distracted. Whereas if I do that with fiction, I know they had some more dialogue. Okay, the plot's moving on. But when it's content that I want to understand, I do need to go back. So the first book I started listening to, maybe last summer. I can't remember, summer or early fall. And it's a book called Healthy Habits Suck. And first of all, I just love the title of the book. I mean, it makes you want to read it, right? And the author's name is Danya Lee-Baggley. The reason I love this book so much is that I think it really helps us to not pathologize why we struggle with doing things that are good for us. So of course, listeners probably know I work with people who are working on resolving health concerns or losing weight. And we all know those are really complicated things to do. But once we learn the steps, why is it that we struggle to do the steps? Like it seems like a no-brainer. We should know the steps, do the steps, and reap the benefits. But if you think about this book, healthy habits suck. Doing the things that are good for you are hard to do.
Can I just ask you a really dumb question?
Yeah.
When you say it helps us not to pathologize things, what exactly do you mean by that?
For me, it means pathologizing ourselves and saying, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm smart. I know these things, but I self-sabotage. I do the opposite. I know I should fast and I'm not fasting.
Right.
I know I should not eat a hot fudge sundae for dinner, but I had one 3 nights this week. What is wrong with me? I'm broken. I'm stupid. I'm lazy. I'm not disciplined. We make a pathological explanation about why we do something.
Got you.
Versus this book, I think, is so good at really helping us recognize my brain is set up to prevent me from doing these healthy habits. Oh, well, now I've got a struggle that I can look at versus a flaw in me that I just have to accept and feel bad about.
Yeah. Big difference.
The one example I'll pull from the book, and what I most often talk about when I'm sharing this concept with clients and people in our community, in the TFM community, is that let's take exercise, for example. We all know that movement, exercise, certain types of movement, it's a healthy thing to do. It gives mental health benefits, cardiovascular benefits, insulin sensitivity benefits, so many benefits. Why do I fight myself in doing it? Why have you and I talked about this before, that we make a plan and don't follow through? And then we have to okay, how can I trick myself into doing this? If you go back kind of evolutionarily to the brain and the brain's function is to help you survive. And if I live in a primitive world where it's me against nature and me against the animals in nature, running a 5K is really stupid.
Unless you have to.
It is a waste of energy.
Conserve your energy.
That's right. Conserving energy is for survival. And so no cave person thought, I should go do a 5K. Because if I go do a 5K, I use up my energy that I need to use to hunt and kill and drag an animal. It makes no sense. And yet here we are in our modern world knowing the very significant benefits of doing physical activity, but we have a brain that is meant to conserve energy. So we are in constant conflict with ourselves. I should exercise. Exercising wastes energy. And of course, just modern day things of, but I'm really comfy here watching this show or whatever. So the book really addresses how do we make sense of that kind of natural resistance. The woman who wrote the book is a therapist. So, kudos to her. Of course, I love the book. It's written by a therapist, but it's utilizing a theory called acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. And so basically, this is a type of therapy that helps people to become kind of more psychologically flexible by promoting the acceptance, so that's the A part, acceptance of difficult thoughts and feelings while committing to actions that are aligned with their values. So difficult thought is, I have to get out of bed and go to the gym right now. I don't want to have to do that. It's warm and comfortable. I don't really like sweating. And I have to work on how do I connect that with the idea that I want the health benefits that doing that exercise will give me. I want the mental health benefits, the help with relieving stress. I want the stronger leg muscles that are so tied with longevity. I want more cardiovascular capacity, all these things. How do we get those? And we have to be able to take the steps to do the action. So acceptance commitment therapy is the whole premise of this book. With my work at TFM, this is so much of the challenge. People are brilliant. They have so much knowledge and they're struggling to make it happen. And tying it with our values, tying it with what we want and accepting, getting out of bed right now isn't fun and it's still important enough to me that I will do it. So that's the first book that I wanted to share with you that I just think, and even if you're not on a weight loss journey or a health journey per se, I think everyone could really relate to this book. Saving money is a healthy habit. But I want to spend it right now, So really helping us look at those type of things.
Well, funny you should mention exercise, because the first thing I have to share with you, and one of the reasons why I didn't use it as an episode, because we've already shared a million episodes about the importance of strength training and exercise. And I've mentioned before, how many times am I going to have to hear this and how many different ways from how many different people to actually get myself to start doing it. So this is a really good follow-on from what you've just been talking about. because I came across yet another person. But funnily enough, I was in a place a couple of weeks ago where I think when we were recording, I was high on ketones at the time. And I had energy coming out of every orifice. And, my muscles were literally starting to twitch. And, they're still sitting in the hall, but I even ordered a cheap sort of like mini dumbbell set things to do some exercises. And I've spoken to a good friend of mine who's been like trying to nag me into doing stuff for ages and blah, blah, blah. But then, this is partially just an excuse, but have not for the last couple of weeks, just have really not been feeling, I've been feeling really under the weather with this. We were talking about this before we started. Is it a cold? Is it not a cold? Is it a reaction to some kind of food stuff? Pretty well ruled out the latter now, but this really slow build up to a cold where you just feel like rubbish. And is it going to come to anything? I don't know. But anyway, that's my excuse for not having gotten started with stuff that I actually felt like I was going to. But I came across a woman called Dr. Vonda Wright. And I stumbled onto her with a podcast that I started listening to, Diary of a CEO. And I haven't written down, I've forgotten the name of the guy, but he's on Dragon's Den in the UK. He's an entrepreneur, really cool guy, a really nice guy. I've listened to a few of his episodes, actually. One of the reasons he's difficult to share from is they're epically long. They're sort of 2.5, 3 hours, most of them. But, if he's got an interesting guest on, they're great. And she was one of those. And I actually listened to her on his podcast and also on Mel Robbins' podcast, actually, which I know you're a fan of, and enjoyed the latter a little bit more, actually. I don't know whether it was because she was talking to a woman, but she got quite emotional on both of them. But even more so with Mel Robbins, I felt like they had just that a little bit more of a connection. But anyway, she's fantastic, Dr. Vonda Wright. She's an orthopedic surgeon. She started out her career as a cancer nurse, and that's where actually a lot of the emotional side comes in and a lot of her motivation. But she has a book called Fitness After 40, which, interestingly enough, for these authors who go on these podcasts who are usually all about plugging their books, right? She, I think maybe in both of those episodes, she didn't even mention it. But she's very passionate and gets very emotional about her mission, which is for all people, but really she's talking about women, to really promote longevity, but in particular longevity without frailty. And this is where she gets very passionate and talks, shares some stories about women who are suffering from osteoporosis and really getting into this period towards the end of their life where they shouldn't be, but are in this period of extreme frailty. And this is what she's trying to combat against with getting women, like I say in particular, but getting their strength up and through different forms of exercise and getting fit. And as you can see from the book, Fitness After 40, she's really talking about people of a certain age. But, she encourages people, particularly in their 30s. She says this is a great time to really start harnessing it, because you're starting to lose that natural energy that you have in your teens and your 20s. You also tend to be, not everyone, but you tend to be in a place where you're a bit more settled. You're a bit more, all those other big things like career and maybe starting family and all those kind of things. Everything's potentially just a little bit more settled. But this is the time when some of these fitness things start to decline, sadly. So this is a time where you could actually sort of harness and stop it from happening. But she really says that, it doesn't matter what age you are, there's always something that you can do. And there's all sorts of things to share, and I will share the episodes. I really suggest you go and listen to her because she's fantastic to watch. She talks about focusing below the belly button, the big leg muscles she talks about a lot, and talks a lot about bone health. She's an orthopedic surgeon, so that's really important. And she talks about how bones need impact. So, sometimes we've been told that some exercises aren't good because they're too high impact. So it's quite interesting to hear her talk about actually we do need some exercising that is putting some impact, that running and those things that some people would have you believe that you need to tone down a bit. Obviously, it's all about balance. But one thing that I thought I would share, she has this acronym FACE. And this is all about the different kinds of movement things that you need to incorporate, and you need to incorporate all of them. So the F is flexibility and mobility. And she talks about the need to move your joints through a full range of motion. The A is aerobic. Best to focus on, and I thought this was really interesting, on the two extremes and not in the middle. And she says, and I'm not sure what she was talking about, I got the impression it was maybe something like CrossFit, but I don't know. She didn't mention the names. But she says that there are a lot of like really famous things out there that focus on the middle. And she said, and it's the middle that ends up the other side of the desk from me a lot. She says, what you need to focus on are the two extremes. So the low extreme, which is things like walking, and she suggests 3 hours a week, ideally something like 4 by 45 minutes. And then the other end, the other extreme, intense sprints. So she said that is as hard as you can for 30 seconds. And you do that 4 times, twice a week. So she says how she does that. And she does say, start from where you are. She's not saying do this all at once. But she says the way she does it is that she does her walk, and she was talking about on a treadmill, but obviously you could be doing this outside on your walk. She does her walk and then she ends it with her sprints. So, she's had a nice warm up, and then she gets her sprints in. The C is carry a load, and this is where the strength training comes in. And she does actually mention somewhere in the podcast that women, you should, and men as well, presumably, but you should be aiming to be able to lift your own body weight and more. I thought, crikey, okay. There's some interesting stuff. She talks about the pressure on joints and the impact that gaining and losing weight. She was talking in particular about knee joints, but she was saying the pressure, that an extra pound of pressure actually equates to something like an extra, I forget exactly, 12 pounds of pressure or something. She does explain it. I can't remember how it all works, but she was saying, even a small amount of weight gain can have a lot more impact than you think. It's not just that extra pound or two. And of course, it works going the other way. Just a little aside there, it's something I remembered. But the last part of FACE is E, equilibrium and foot speed. So this is where balance comes in, balance being really important. And you'll be pleased to hear the easy thing that she says and that she does and that she recommends is standing on one leg when you're brushing your teeth. She said it's actually really good because as you're brushing your teeth, there's a bit of movement there. So it's not just a question of standing on one leg, you're moving. So you are actually having to stabilize quite a lot and put more into that balance than just a static standing on one leg. So balance and agility. The example that this comes in is correcting yourself quickly if you go into a fall or a trip. It's not just about rebalancing, but it's about being able to move your feet quickly to correct yourself. She says, when I come in, I always put my bag down next to me. The number of times I get up and I nearly trip over. Well, if I didn't have that balance and that foot speed, I wouldn't be agile enough to stop myself from falling over. And she talks about, and we've mentioned this before, the really big, significantly big and sometimes terminal problems with having a fall when you're older and ending up in hospital. And some of those falls could be avoided if you had better balance and foot agility. So, you can tell that was just a little snippet that I took, and she talks for hours, and all of that was really interesting. I genuinely wanted to listen right to the end and then go and listen to her repeat a lot of it with somebody else, with Mel Robbins. So yeah, I thoroughly recommend going and listening to her. And really, really lovely person with passion and purpose and, spending a lot of time. She's obviously very, very busy in her day job, but she's putting in a lot of time and effort with this passion to really try and get women fitter and healthier as they age. So I really liked her a lot.
You know, Daisy, that's so interesting because I don't even remember. I think it was just somebody posting on Facebook. It might have been like a physical therapist or something, or a personal trainer. But they talked about the thigh muscles, those big muscles in our legs, and how they are most, it was a man that I listened to about this, and that they are most linked with longevity. That if your thigh muscles are strong, the connection with living a longer, healthier life is significant. And so I'm really excited. You have also reminded me to go back and listen to that podcast because I think he is a great interviewer and has such great guests on it. So now I'm going to have to go back and listen to this one because, again, I'm in that place of I do need to really start making regular physical activity, whatever that looks like, something I do congruently. And so my book, Healthy Habits Suck, and then this really reinforces that for me, that I need to start focusing on how taking care of my body physically, movement-wise, is so important to me. And I really need to stop having excuses and really start working on how to make that part of my life.
Well, Terri, I've just looked at the time and we decided we were going to keep this as a reasonably short episode, and I've got another episode of something I watched last night actually that I wanted to talk to you about, and you've got another book to talk about. But if we talk about those, judging from the time we've already spent, we've got another episode. So we just decided off air then to turn it into another episode. So we're going to be back with a part 2. We've managed to both ramble on with hopefully some interesting stuff. So we'll come back to you next week with a second part to this episode.
Well, I'm totally looking forward to that, Daisy, because I want to hear about the other thing, because I know when it's that recent for you and you want to share it, there's something really valuable about it. And I can't wait to share this other book with you as well.
Excellent. Well, until we meet again, I hope you have a very wonderful week.
Take good care, everyone. I'm looking at the podcast. The guy's name is Steve Bartlett.
That's it. Yeah.
And I've listened to a couple. There's a couple that I've listened to that are really good. And now as I'm trying to find her, I'm reading all the titles. Oh my God. There's like so many good ones in here. And I think he's a good interviewer.
Yeah, he has really good guests. Yeah. And he's good at drawing things out.
Yeah.
He gets people to cry a lot, apparently.
They're freaking 2 hours long.
Yeah, they're long. Yeah.
They're all like 2 hours 20, 2 hours.
He definitely goes for the long form.
Now there's 1 hour and 38. That's really short. I won't even do for our purposes 1 over an hour anymore. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to have to look hers up then because I'm really interested. But there's so many now that I want to go listen to.